Do you think, because this is something I was thinking about as I was checking the analytics for a group that I admin real fast just to see the balance, which the balance on that is actually 60% male, 30% female. It's also pretty heavily leaning. So one of the things that I've noticed when because I've admin this group since it used to be a group that was run by IGN, and then they handed it off to us because they were no longer going to be running it. And so I've been running it for like 3-4 years now, I guess. One of the things that I see and that I've been told from people who have left is that anytime that they've criticized a piece of media that's relevant to the top, like what the group is about, for being offensive towards women or towards some sort of minority group, or really just talking about what the offensiveness of it, that they're shut down immediately and people jump on them and don't really give them any sort of respectful discussion about it.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been told multiple times, because there are people that are like, oh yeah, I finally had to leave because no one actually wanted to talk about it when I brought up something I disagreed with it. They just wanted me to shut up and just accept it. And I don't know if that's as bad in other communities, but I know in anime, it's like real bad, because for some reason, no one likes to hear that anime might have some really questionable shit in it, which it does. Like there's a lot of things that I realized I was super okay with overlooking when I was like 14, 15, because I was just excited to get my hands on anime, right? But then I look at stuff now and I'm like, whoa, that is like wildly inappropriate. Not even in a like a prudish way, but like the camera is pointing up. Like I remember when I was watching Food Wars, actually, season 3, there's a character who's a high schooler, but she looks like she's 12. And there's a point where she has like a foodgasm, which a 12-year-old shouldn't be having a foodgasm. And the camera actually tilts up into her groin and tilts upward to her face. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't like that. And I remember when Keijo came out, the one about the butt tournaments where they like fight and battle each other by bouncing their butts. That came out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
The thing that turned me off to that, because I actually think that could be really hilarious, is the fact that the camera spent so much time in their vaginas. And I'm like, that's really uncomfortable. That's no longer funny or like, oh, look at this sexy character. It's gross. But anytime someone brings that up and like kind of criticizes that kind of thing with evidence to back up their point, like it's not like they're just saying, I don't like that, because really fan service is very subjective. Everyone has different things that they're okay with and that they're not. But that people will be like, that's just anime and you have to be okay with it. That's just the way it is. When it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can be critical of your media while you enjoy it. Do you think that may play a part in it as well, in this big gap that you're seeing?
Oh, it definitely does. Like so far, we've mostly, I think all of us so far in this discussion have been talking about mostly the baked in stuff, like the baked in misogyny and stuff like that. That's just like inherent in everyday life. The almost the passive, I guess you could call it in a weird sort of way. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it's just like the sort of like stuff that's there on a cultural level, on an institutional level. Systemically, it's there and has been since the inception of our whatever country you're living in and stuff. We haven't talked about the active stuff, because there is pushback, brutal pushback, and that's the point of it, is to shut your things down. Like one of the things that a lot of people who attack any sort of progressive for saying, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea that we should do in our media and stuff like that, one of the tactics they do is come up with things like buzzwords and talking point and very short talking points that can be used to shut you down, like using the word feminist in like an extremely hateful and pejorative way, like you're just one of those feminists, like saying it like that immediately carries a bunch of baggage with it, where it's just like a bunch of the bro club will get on board, it's like this, oh, she's just one of those, am I right, fellas, kind of thing, that sort of attitude. which is a very aggressive, very toxic, very hostile, and it's an active way to basically shut down any sort of like discussion, debate, any sort of suggestion that maybe we do things differently. Part of it is people who this is their life. They've made that active choice and they've decided, I want misogyny in my life. I am misogynist. I'm going to do everything that I can to perpetuate misogyny because I think it's in my best interest as a man. And they've just made that choice, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's what they want to do. Other people, they're not sure oftentimes, and this is, I think, the vast majority of people who have a hostile reaction, especially guys, they're not really sure why they're angry. They just know they are, and they know they don't like it. You're suggesting, they change anime not to do the things that they actually really like about anime, the fan service, the male gaze, all the rest of the stuff like that. And it's like they're not, even if they try to be, sometimes they can't help but be angry about it, about the idea that you should change aspects like that, and then they'll attack, sort of thing, in defense of something they love, something they hold dear. Especially, if certain fans use their pop culture, their toys, their manga, their anime, their movies, their video games, and stuff like that as a coping mechanism for other things. You're basically not. It basically ceases to become a discussion about like the pop culture or anything like that. It's now like it's a social mental issue, and it's just like you're getting to a point of like an intimate part of their personality that they are not comfortable with challenging, that they don't want challenged. They use anime to get away from the fucking shit in their life, right or wrong, and I'm not judging one way or the other. God knows I've used certain things in my life as well as coping mechanisms. So it's like, I'm not saying that's necessarily bad, but it's just saying like you have to take that into account when you start to challenge these sorts of things, because a lot of people they're holding on to a lot of stuff, and they're using a lot of these, these pieces of entertainment to deal with a lot of things in their lives. And you don't know until you start the conversation, and then all of this stuff comes out.
Right. What do you think, Alex?
Also, sensitive cultural issue about this whole thing. I'm sure like a lot of women in Japan have a problem with the fan service and sexualizing women. But how active are they in fighting against it in Japan? You know what I mean? Because anime, as we're all fans. People around the world are fans, but anime is made for Japan, and then it gets exported out. And the idea of us three right now complaining about the baked in stuff, to them it would be just like, who are you guys to complain about our thing that's within our culture? You know what I mean? It would have to come from within Japan, with the Japanese. I'm not saying just the women, but the population, to actually say, does it bother them, or or just not say anything? And I don't know enough about like the Japanese people to say, are they too like quiet to even like mention it to the creators?
And this may go down to a deeper point too, is that really within creators circles, like, so for example, on production teams and that kind of thing, when they're looking at these types of things and the way that they perceive it. Because for example, you have shows like High School DxD, which is really just garbage. It's basically animated soft porn, because of how often there's a lot of like near nudity and exposed parts, but it's really done for the gaze of the viewers, compared to a series like The Woman Called Fujiko Mine, which is also quite explicit. Like there's a lot of scenes where Fujiko is naked or like, doing drugs and being sexy. But the difference between that is that instead of the characters being made to be sexy, like in High School DxD, Fujiko has agency over her sensuality in The Woman Called Fujiko Mine. So there's a big difference in how that's portrayed between just those two titles. you know, where you still have equal amounts of nudity, equal amounts of, you know, sexy scenes and that kind of thing. But because of the way the character is written and the way that it plays out, the perception of it is completely different.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not totally against trash. I watch a lot of trash anime.
Sometimes, and that's the thing. Sometimes, you know, I think it's good. Sometimes we all like junk food, man.
Yeah,
and that's the important part, is it's okay to be critical of your media and to be critical of the spaces that your media tends to occupy in fandom without losing enjoyment. Because, like, I'm trying to think of one that I really liked that turned out to be hot garbage. Himoto Umaru-chan. Hot garbage. It's about the little sister who's an otaku, but she also throws temper tantrums all the time and is basically a toddler in a 16-year-old's body. Like,
she turns into a little kid.
Yeah, she's horrendous. And that's a garbage show.
Yeah.
But even though I recognize the problems with that show, just on an objective level, not even a subjective, like, you know, I like this versus this type of thing, I still had fun watching it at the time. Now I tried to actually watch the second season because I didn't watch it when it was airing. And I only made it through the first episode. And I was like, I don't know how I tolerated this character when this came out. She's so horrid.
I just wanted to... sorry, Alex, you go ahead and I'll
No, I was just saying that show was funny. I've never gone to the second season because I was like, I got it. It's enough for me.
That's you get your fill, and that's okay. Like, I think it's good, you know. Oh, like Tenjo Tenge, actually, that's a great example. Tenjo Tenge is by the artist Oh Great. The manga is, I think, more explicit than the anime. But the anime is basically 100% fan service. Like, it's way out there. But it's so goofy and it's such a wild ride that even though it's like, there are some moments where it just makes your eyes want to roll backwards out of your head, it's still fun. And I can still enjoy Tenjo Tenge and be like, okay, that was funny. Or that part was like, that was pretty sexy. And still go, yeah.
The art is so good in that. I have some of the little bust figures, and like the boobs are like detached and they're like connected by spring, so it just bounces around. That's how, like,
just like in the show.
That's how trashy
that's trashy hardcore talking for sure.
Yeah, Chad. In Tenjo Tenge, the characters' breasts basically move on their own.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the long running gags throughout the entire series is that they're semi-sentient and move on their own. All right, what did you want to say, Chad?
I actually just wanted to bring up sort of like a side point, and it was sort of like brought about what you said, like how you said some of the anime you were watching is basically like softcore porn and stuff like that, and that actually sort of brings up a good point, because it's sort of like, I feel like some of these creators, like some of these companies and stuff like that are making this entertainment, this content, are sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they know what sells. And the reason why I brought up porn is because porn, like, sells, obviously. You know, it makes up 90% of the internet, and it's just like, it's so much of it is just awful. It's so ridiculously misogynist. It's horrifying. But that's the majority of the content. I mean, it is changing, especially now, ironically, because there's a lot of women in charge of making porn now. But it's just like, that sort of thing is like, you as a company, you as a content creator, you know this sells. So you have something like anime, for example, or like not anime specifically either, like stuff like Hollywood films and whatnot, right? And you know that a certain expected level of misogyny is actually what sells certain pieces of entertainment. And so you keep making them over and over, one year after another, selling them, you know, and you know that there's a demographic out there that will buy this stuff over and over, one year after another, you know, again and again and stuff. So it's like, that's kind of like the situation too. Like, I know with anime fan service and stuff, there's like, you've educated me actually in the way some anime fans approach their fan service. And it's like, I mean, I've been an anime fan for fucking ever, and it's just, even that was like news to me, You know, the whole 3D girl versus 2D girl was like, I know everybody's probably going to laugh at me. A lot of people who watch this are probably going to laugh at me, and they're going to say, "Oh my God, you naive, man, you." It's just like, but I honestly didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know
that
existed.
either. We found out at the same time, Chad.
Until I met Celia and she explained it to me.
It's Celia.
And I was like, what the hell is this phenomenon? And it's like,
oh my God.
You're making, not only have you realized, like, as a content creator, as a company, not only have you realized that there is a demographic out there for this kind of entertainment, but you've seized upon that. And now you've created entire genres that cater to that demographic. And I'm sure there's a whole host of social, and, psychological issues that come with that sort of thing. We could spend probably an entire show talking about, but like I said, that's just, digressing back to the point, that's the reality, is that that this will sell, that there's a market out there. And so this content keeps getting created with that certain amount of misogyny baked right into it, because that's those are the people who are buying it.
Mm.
Yeah. Sometimes the straight out, like, porn, anime, or whatever, it's probably a little bit more acceptable, because when you get it, like, that's what you expect, right? That's where they're gonna go. Yeah, but the trashy shows are like, the draw is like, how far are they gonna go with this? And that's like the fun of it. Like whoa, are they gonna do what I think they're gonna do? And that's like the uncomfortable nature of it is what you're there for. It's the nature of those type of anime.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing with like with the current season, with titles like Redo of a Healer, where like the entire premise is that it is well, YouTube will take me down if I say the word. It's revenge sexual assault, because the protagonist. Yeah, it's the entire premise of the plot, and because this healer that was part of a party, from what I understand, I haven't watched it because it's not for me. There are people who are enjoying it, and it is also has really intense and graphic scenes of that. So the premise, from what I understand, is that there was a healer who was abused by his party in a previous life, because they were desperate to keep him. And so in keeping him, they tortured him in a variety of ways, physically, mentally, that kind of thing. So he is taking revenge for what has happened to him on other people by either assaulting them himself or setting up scenarios where they get assaulted by others.
Jesus.
Yeah. And like, it's one of those things that makes me go, why did this get picked up the way it did? Because I remember when, what's the name? I want to say it's Ishizoku Reviewers. The one that's the show about reviewing brothels. So that got picked up by Funimation last year. And then they dropped it because they got to episode 3 where there were like really explicit sex scenes in it. And Funimation was like, yeah, no, sorry, we can't license this. And to be fair, the manga for that is actually a lot less explicit than the anime. They like ramped it up 10 notches for the animated adaptation.
Wow.
So I think Funimation was like, okay, this is not what we were expecting. We can't do this. No more after this. But somehow Redo of a Healer continues to go on. It's actually kind of interesting what people, especially because it's definitely creating conversation. Like a lot of people are talking about it because it's full of shocking things and full of things that are intended to offend your audience.
And I think that's something, like, to Alex's point, and like what you just said, and also to Alex's earlier point, is that like people are attracted to anime because it does those sorts of things. Like you're both the culture of the way anime entertainment is created, and also the culture of Japan does things differently with their entertainment than we do. The medium of animation can get away with a whole bunch of different things that you can't get away with in live action unless it's some sort of like, low budget, really obscure art house sort of productions, and even then there's only so much that you can, there's only so much you can do, and there's certain directors and stuff like that, not even like American directors. I'm talking about like people all over the world and stuff like that. There's certain directors that have made careers out of, making really like, depraved sort of entertainment and whatnot. But with animation, you can do all sorts of different things that you couldn't do in live action, or would be really hard to do. And that's the draw for a lot of people, even myself to a certain degree. It's just like, that's originally, yeah, that was sort of like maybe even just a morbid fascination or something like that back when I was young. And I was like, wow, we don't get any entertainment like this where I live, in the country I live. Like, you can't show stuff like this, like tentacles and stuff like what? It's just like, this is crazy, and even though I didn't go in for it after, you cannot deny that it had a certain like even morbid fascination or appeal, just because it was something that you had never encountered before in any of the entertainment that you have been exposed to in your native country, even today.
Right.
In fact, you could even argue that, it's worse in North American. Like, we're currently going through a streak of Puritanism that's brutal in North America, and it's just like, it's gotten, we've sort of, as much as we've gained certain things, we've also lost certain things, I think. And I think anime will always, to a certain extent, come under fire, at least in North America. I can't speak for every, Western nation or other non-Western nations either. Mm-hmm. But at least here in North America and Canada and North America, United States, and even Central America to a certain extent, there's a lot of things about the Japanese culture that we're just not going to be on the level with, good or bad, maybe we should be. There's certain aspects of Japanese culture I think that we should probably take to heart as North Americans and decide that we need to dump this and add this to our culture. I mean, again, that's something that has to happen on institutional, cultural, national sort of level, and there's a broader discussion than just anime. But yeah, I think those are good points, absolutely great points.
Yeah, I think really it does kind of boil down to, at least within fandom, that we can I think, because I don't want anime to stop doing what it's doing necessarily.
Exactly.
Because without that, like, if we discounted everything that did that, like, we wouldn't have Berserk, which is famous for its very grotesque violence, sexual assault scenes, that kind of thing. But Berserk is also a masterpiece in storytelling for high fantasy, and really just in terms of art as well. Or renowned films like the Belladonna of Sadness. So like, that's where I'm like, well, there's a part of me that goes, it would be nice if I didn't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there are titles that contain content that no one really wants to talk about in a constructive way, or really an adult way. Yeah. That is famous because it provides more than just being shocking. And I think it kind of boils down to, if we're going to consume this kind of content, we need to be ready to have adult conversations about it. It doesn't mean necessarily defending why you like it. I think if you know why you like it, then kudos to you. That's really kind of how we consume media anyways, whether it's, subjectively good or bad. But if someone brings up to you, hey, this part is kind of a problem and this is why, then you have to be ready to talk about it, not just tell them, oh, I don't want to talk about it, or you're wrong because you're, such and such, and you're not a real fan, and that kind of thing. Like, yeah, we really got to be, and this actually boils down to the social issues as well, where people say, well, that's not true, you're just drinking the Kool-Aid or whatever. We really just need to be ready to talk. And I don't know if people are at that point where they feel like they can, or if they're even interested in doing it. Because a lot of times the conversation just gets shut down.
I think people also have to keep in mind the role that that risky, dangerous, even if you want to use that term, types of media play in dealing with issues that mainstream media won't. There's things in anime that we just don't deal with here in North America, and vice versa too. There's things that we deal with in North American media that Japanese media, even anime, doesn't touch.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like there has to be that sort of thing. Like I have friends who literally have organized their pop culture lives so they never consume any sort of media that isn't safe, predictable, and doesn't push them, right? And that's their choice. You know, you want to consume media like that, that's your choice. But you can't blame other people for saying that media is just not for us. It's boring, it's uninspiring, it doesn't speak to us, it doesn't get us going, it doesn't get us excited about the entertainment that we watch. And so you have to have mediums like anime, mediums like independent film, film from other countries and stuff like that, that can, you know, speak to that sort of need that you have, and also, you know, deal with issues that, you know, people aren't willing to deal with. I mean, you know, take for example homosexuality, you know, which was not really dealt with at all in mainstream media in any sort of format like 25, 30 years ago, you know, and it was the purview of things like even anime to a certain extent, but mostly independent film and whatnot that started discussing those subjects and talking about the subjects and telling stories about that subject. Also, like, of course, gay media itself, gay film itself, but also like, you know, independent film and stuff that started like reaching broader audiences outside of like, you know, certain demographics and say, this is something that's happening on a broader like on a broader level. This is part of our life, and this is media about that. If you don't want to consume the media, then that's fine. That's your choice. But it exists for people who want to create that media, and that played no small part in where we are now. You know, as North Americans, as Canadians, Americans, whatever. And all the, you know, the changes that we've made over time and whatnot. Our media was a part of that fight. It was a part of that, not necessarily fight, even fight is a wrong word to use. It was just a part of letting people know that that gay people exist, you know, that they're there, you know, that they have a story, that they're in your lives, they're real people and whatnot, and you can't just continue to demonize them, you know, one day in and day out. And our media helped with that. It was those stories that helped. And I think anime also to a certain extent deals with a lot of subjects too. In some ways, I find anime is like almost the reverse too. It's instead of like doing things like you would with like, you know, North American independent film, for example, where you would breach issues and stuff like that and create awareness and whatnot. Anime, almost by its very nature as like an incredibly unreal medium, almost gives viewers, audiences, permission to indulge in certain things that they wouldn't in live action because of the very unreality of it. That disconnect, that, you know, that this is completely unreal. I can't even suspend my disbelief because this is all animated by hand. You know, that allows the individual to explore certain aspects of themselves that you just can't get in any other medium.
That's actually a really good point.
That's a powerful tool. It's a very powerful tool, you know, and that's something that needs to be promoted and protected, even if sometimes it leads to, you know, certain animes like the ones that you and Alex have been describing for the last little while that are just uncomfortable and, you know, not really good, sort of trash and, you know, stuff like that. I mean, you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
They're good in their own way.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes back to the original question, you know, like over sanitizing something like anime or the group itself, it just leads to righteousness, you know. It'll be like Spanish Inquisition, you know, like that's what happens when you go too far to fixing everything for everybody, you know. So
yeah,
you can't totally like clean up anime or else cease being anime, you know. That's my thought on it.
And I think too, like with that sort of thing, with your point, Alex, like cleaning up things and making things okay for everybody, making sure that everybody like doesn't feel offended or something like that. It's like those aspects of it, like, I mean, you know, that certain content is just not going to be for you, and you have to accept that. What the problem is that when we create only one kind of content that excludes like entire, you know, different groups, like women, for example, and there's only anime that excludes women. There's nothing else. You know, sort of like that's the issue. We should be getting to a point where we're not sanitizing everything, but we accept that, you know, there are certain aspects of our nature as people, as humans, that we want to see, what some certain types of content that we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to understand that there's other types of people out there, other humans,
yep.
who want to see that same kind of content, but for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, like, to use an example, we talked a lot about like naked females, sexy females and stuff like that, sexy men, anime men who are sexualized, that sort of stuff. We have no problem in like our group, for example, posting fan art of like, you know, sexy females. Sexy males, however, is not necessarily a problem. I would say we've done it before, and it's, you know, it's been, the topics are okay,
mm-hmm.
but it's also quietly not encouraged, you know. And as someone who likes that kind of content, I would like to see more of that as well, and I would like to see our entertainment mediums be available.
Again, the demographics work against you.
Yeah, you know? Again, exactly. The demographics work against you. You know, it's just like, yeah, I assume everybody there is like, you know, 99% straight, or, you know, mostly, sort of thing, right?
It kind of reminds me of when remember the Macross Boys pop-up shop happened a couple of years ago?
The one that drove Marianne crazy?
Yeah, and because it was all about portraying the like main men of Macross as a bunch of hotties. Like, the reality is that most of them have that sex appeal already. Like, you can't tell me that Roy Fokker and Ozma and like Ara are not designed to have some sort of like daddy energy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't deny it. Okay, it's there in the character.
I didn't know that was the energy, but I see it now. Celia.
Well, it's because the other guys are too young and a little too they're a little too young to emanate, you know, daddy energy with it.
And hey, you know, they have their own kind of energy as well.
The boy band energy.
They have a different appeal. You know, so but I remember when that came out and it was being shared that like that there were people who were uncomfortable with commenting how good the art looked and being like, I want this, you know, I want pieces from this, even though Ozma is like, you know, doing like this, got his hands behind him and he's all posing all sexy and
just give me 1 second,
that kind of thing. So yeah. I can't wait to keep that in the episode where I say that Roy Fokker and Aaron have daddy energy.
Mm-hmm.
So do either of you have any final thoughts to share before we wrap up? We've had a very long conversation that kind of went on a very like squiggly journey with a lot of tangents that ended up bringing us back around to our original point, which is beautiful. For sure.
But you know what? The topic itself like warrants like an in-depth analysis, which you can't summarize in a 5-minute soundbite. So,
right.
And you know, and you have to, like I said, one of the things I was trying to do is to say like to give a broader perspective to some of these issues, and you know, force people to understand that these are issues that go beyond Macross Fan Central. So like treat them as
definitely. What I was thinking is like we're not going to be able to fix it tonight in one conversation, but we can open it up to everybody else. Maybe we could. I don't want to do it in Macross Fan Central. Maybe we could do it in the Discord group where we talk about like moderation issues and stuff. I'll open up like a section there or something, or a thread where we could talk about like, you know, fixing some of the problems. I mean, you know, I don't think they're not as heavy as the way we discuss this tonight, but it's something that needed to be addressed, certainly. So yeah, if you could just put it into the conversation, then, you know, let's do it. cool.
Sounds good. And what is the name of our server, Alex, so people can look us up?
It's the same Macross Fan Central Discord. I have a link on it on the pinned at the top of the group of Macross Fan Central, Macross Delta, and Pop the Culture. So yeah.
Yeah, there we are.
We are.
Fan Central.
I haven't been there in so long. I totally forgot about it. But you.
I'm there all the time.
Oh, really?
I go and read. I don't always post, but I always go and check.
Let's close this up because I want to say something about the Discord thing. So yeah, if you guys want to go to Discord and discuss some of the things that we talked about here, go there and just put your opinion down. I'll open up the discussion over there.
All right. Well, thanks for watching with us today, guys. If you agreed or disagreed with anything, we'd love to hear your feedback. You can leave that in the comments section below. Chad, where can people find you?
They can find me on Macross Mecha Manual on Facebook. You can also find me on the Macross Mecha Manual on Twitter. You can send me an email at marchingcw@hotmail.com. Or you can find me skulking about on the Discord server for Macross Fan Central every once in a while.
Nice. All right, Alex, where can people find you?
Yeah, so Macross Fan Central, the group, Macross Central, the page on Facebook, both on Facebook. And I'll be going to the Discord more. You can find that link in our group. It's a pinned a post. And that's about it. Macross tweet on Twitter. So pretty easy to find. Celia?
Very nice.
where can we find you, Celia?
You can find me on Twitter at Planets Twinkle and on Facebook at Celia Rose Cosplay. If you happen to be interested in Toonami stuff, I do run the social media accounts for ToonamiFaithful.com. So you'll see me there as well. And I see everything that you post. Ooh, do. So scary. But anyways, yeah. So you can find me on those sites there. And hopefully we'll see you guys in the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.